I'm going to get started and everybody else will catch up. And I will send out a recording. So what is the shadow? The shadow contains all of the qualities we try to hide or deny in ourself. The shadow is everything that you don't want to be, everything you think you're not. So people will say to me, that's not who I am. And I'll know there's a shadow underneath. I'll know immediately that's not who I am. When I hear those words, I know that they have not integrated their shadow. They have not embraced. They have not loved that part of them. And that's the key. We're loving the shadow. We're loving those aspects of ourselves because that's unconditional love, right? It's not bad. The shadow is not bad. It's not scary, but it is everything that you wouldn't want anybody to think about you, right? It's like the judgmental part of you. You would say, I'm not judgmental. Or the selfish part of you, you would say, I'm the most generous person in the world. When you hear people say, I am the most generous person in the world, you know they're hiding their selfish aspect of themselves. So think about all the things you wouldn't want anyone to know about you. That's the shadow. It's different for all of us, depending on how we were raised and who raised us. And the shadow is the part of ourselves that we reject in others. We reject it in others. So usually we project the shadow onto others. It's what we are denying in ourselves, what we are hiding away in ourselves. So it's not bad. It's purposeful. We need it. We need to integrate the shadow because that's what makes us whole. And in order to be awakened or enlightened, you need to be whole, a whole human being. So the term shadow was a word that this Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung coined the phrase the shadow to describe the unconscious aspects of the self that we have suppressed, that we suppressed as children. And we forgot they even exist. Jung proposed that the qualities we deny in our life, they don't disappear completely. They hide in the subconscious mind. So he called them the shadow. And it's nothing to be afraid of. It's something we want to embrace. Why? Because there's gifts. There's gifts that the shadow holds for us. The gifts create the wholeness within us. We need all the aspects of ourselves. God created everything. We separate and we disassociate from these qualities, and it creates dysfunction. So Carl Jung said that the shadow contains our weaknesses, our flaws, our shortcomings, our repressed impulses, such as greed and lust and stupidity and deceit and dissatisfaction, entitlement, selfishness, ungratefulness. The shadow contains all of the suppressed emotions and all of the suppressed thoughts. Usually, most people will know your shadows. You're the only one that doesn't know your shadows. It's obvious to everyone else what your shadows are. So ask your kids, what are your shadows? They'll tell you. They're the ones, they know you better than anybody. Ask your partner. So it sounds scary, right? The shadow, well, fear not. The shadow is not something to be intimidated by or afraid of, because the shadow is the doorway to the soul, okay? It's soul work. Shadow work is soul work. It's about self-love. we shouldn't be afraid to explore our shadow, because acknowledging, accepting, embracing, and integrating every aspect of ourself makes our life a more rewarding, more fulfilling, more abundant, purposeful life, right? So the shadow is really an energy. It's an energy, or it's a force that's held down in the subconscious mind, which by now you all will know is the body, right? It's the part of us that we don't want to see. We suppress it, we repress it beneath the awareness of our conscious mind. And it creates blocks and patterns that are sabotaging to our life. So these not knowing what your shadow aspects are can be very sabotaging to your life. Freedom comes from releasing this suppressed energy, because think of all the energy it takes to hold down parts of yourself, right? It takes a lot of energy. So when we release the energy, we're lighter, we're freer. Debbie Ford brought the shadow to the States, the United States, and she brought Carl Jung's work to the United States, and she made it simple so people could understand it. So there's many books written on the shadow, and I would recommend Debbie Ford's books in particular, because the way she explains it, the way she describes it, and helps people to understand it, I think is amazing. So when we make peace with our shadow, our lives transform. Everything transforms. We no longer have to pretend to be someone we're not. We embrace our authentic nature. And the shadows, our shadow sides helps us in life, right? So one of my shadows was my voice, speaking, shadow, like public speaking, fear, total fear of public speaking. And I remember 7 or 8 years ago when I agreed to teach classes in spirituality, I agreed. And then like when the day came, I'm like, was I out of my mind? What was I thinking? I don't like to teach. I don't want to teach. But what I discovered when I embraced my fear of public speaking, when I embraced my fear of speaking, I realized how much I loved it. I loved teaching, but I had an idea in my head. There was a story I was making up about myself that I didn't have a voice. So when I was younger, my father, when he used to reprimand us, he used to make us sit. There were 3 of us, three children in my family, and he used to make us sit there, and he would say, he would like berate us, and he would say, you can think whatever you want, but don't say a word. And in my house, we really weren't allowed to speak up for ourselves. We weren't taught to speak up for ourselves. And that also helped me help others, right? Because it gave me great compassion for people in finding their voice. So when it was a shadow. My voice was a shadow. I thought that I was just not that person. And really, lo and behold, 7 or 8 years later, I realized my life is so much fuller, that I was able to see that I am that person, but I suppressed that part of myself. And, it's not my father's fault. He still had some great, attributes. He was a good father. He was loving, but okay, he disciplined in fear. Everybody, we all do our best at the level of consciousness we're at. So there's no blame to our parents. I wish conscious parenting was around when I was raising my children. But I don't blame myself, and they don't blame me for anything that goes wrong in their life. We know now we're responsible. We're the responsible ones. We're responsible for transforming our lives. And, I believe, as you all know, that we have sacred contracts with our parents. So they gave us the exact experience we needed to fulfill our purpose in this lifetime. So when we make peace with our shadow, our lives transform, okay? We no longer have to pretend to be someone we're not. We don't have to limit ourselves. We don't have to hold ourselves down. We get to be fully, authentically, our true essence. We no longer have to prove ourselves to anyone that we're good enough. We no longer have to live in fear. Instead, we find the gifts of the shadow. So the gift of my voice was that I can use my voice for good. I can use my voice for teaching. And I believe teachers are born teachers. I believe it is a gift. So then, the shadow reveals the glory of your true nature, is what I'm saying. And we finally find the freedom to create the life that we've always desired. Um, the shadow is not a problem to be solved, okay? It's not an enemy to be conquered. The shadow wants to be revealed. It wants to bring us back into homeostasis, into balance. The shadow parts of ourself are what we need to become whole. And instead of getting rid of the parts, we've been taught are bad, instead of getting rid of the parts of ourselves that we hate or despise about ourselves, this is about becoming honest with ourselves, loving the parts of ourselves that we hate. That's self-love, right? Admitting to ourselves the part of ourselves that we despise or hate helps us to love others, because Heidi sent me a quote that says, we treat others the way we feel about ourselves. That is very true, because if there's self-hatred, we're going to be angry and nasty to other people, because that hatred is going to come out. It's going to ooze out. It's going to come out inappropriately. So we have to be honest with ourselves. We have to listen to that inner self-talk. So we're going to love these parts of ourselves, and we're going to integrate these parts of ourselves. And this is what we're doing this month. So this is also a releasing of resistance, right? We have to release resistance to what's holding us back in our lives. Where are we hiding? Where are we limiting ourselves? Where are we holding ourselves back? Because it's our shadow self that holds us back, that has us play small. And that's the part we're going to integrate. And so our lives can be fuller and richer. So with a slight shift in perception, we have the ability to take back all of these aspects of ourselves and claim our own greatness, our joy, our creativity, our strength, our happiness, our freedom, and our courage. All of these parts of ourselves we ran around with as children, and someone told us we were bad, and we believed it. And we believed that to be good meant to hide all of the so-called negative qualities. So integrating our guilt or shame or our mistrust of others or our mistrust of ourselves, our helplessness, our fears, our powerlessness, our heartache, our betrayal, our anger, our resentment creates a whole human being. Integrating all of these aspects creates a whole human being. And Carl Jung said, I'd rather be whole than be good. And I'm going to explain what that means. It doesn't mean you can't be a good person, but I'm going to give you a great example of someone who died trying to be good, okay? All of these traits are learned, and now we have to undo all the learning, all the conditioning, all the programming to integrate these aspects of ourselves. So for the next couple of weeks, I invite you to become inspired and empowered by your shadow, and you can unconceal the aspects of yourself that are limiting you and maybe holding you back. So part of the success of shadow work comes from giving up all judgment of ourselves at this point. And we must release self-judgment and just accept who we are unconditionally, exactly the way we are. And we have to accept that we are capable of all of the aspects of humanity. We are capable of all of the qualities that God created for humanity. We have the seed for every single quality. You know, you might say, well, I'm not a murderer and I would never murder anyone. But I would challenge that and say, if you had a child and someone was trying to hurt your child, and that's what it took to save that child, you would do what it would take. Someone might say, well, I'm not a thief. I could never be a thief. I don't have that quality. But if your child was starving, you would steal food for that child. So every single quality God created, we have that seed in our DNA. When we accept this and we stop judging others and we accept that we're not perfect either, we can accept ourselves and we can forgive ourselves for our shortcomings. And it makes it easier to love everybody else unconditionally. You don't have to like them, but you can love them unconditionally, flaws and all. And you can forgive people too. That helps forgiveness. And I'm not saying forgiveness is easy, but we're going to do a whole month on forgiveness too. So shadow work is not about getting rid of anything. Okay, let's be clear here. It's about embracing. It's about embracing what's already there and accepting what's already there and allowing it to be a part of us again. Okay, the shadow just wants to balance things out. It just wants to bring us back into wholeness. So the shadow will come out inappropriately if we're not paying attention. The energy's gotta go somewhere, okay? So this energy of the shadow will humiliate you by acting out inappropriately. Repressed emotions, repressed energy seeks a way out. They have no choice. So you might as well acknowledge those emotions, those negative emotions, or those hateful emotions. Because if you try to repress them and not acknowledge them and not honor them, you're not honoring you and you're not loving you, and they will seek a way out. So when we are in pain or suffering on any level, in any form, it's because we're not living the life that reflects our whole self. You're not living the life that your soul came here to live, right? So the soul will create pain for you in any form it can. All right, it will make you extremely uncomfortable, extremely lonely, extremely sad, and it will force you into your authentic self. So this is the purpose of pain. Pain is a great transformer. So when you feel sadness bubbling up within you, that's your indication. That's your indication from your unconscious mind, the body, that you're ready to let go of something. It's sending one of your shadows up for healing. So it could be coming up as sadness or anger or even hatred for yourself or hatred for someone else, but we must retrain ourselves to honor these feelings. So when we're not feeling fulfilled with our day-to-day living, or we have a sense that something feels off, okay, or missing or wrong, when there's an emptiness or a hole in our lives, and we look for something to fill that hole or that void or that feeling of discontent, think of all the ways humanity has attempted to fill the hole inside of themselves. What will make me feel better today? What will make me feel more comfortable? How should the other person act so I feel more comfortable, right? It's insanity. So you can't act like that. You can't behave like that. You can't do that because it makes me uncomfortable. So these are all of the ways humanity tries to fill that void. Well, how about just to cure the uncomfortableness, right? People are going to act, people are going to do, people are going to say, people are going to think whatever they want. Wouldn't it be easier just to release resistance to that and heal the inner world? Because our outer world reflects our inner world. So if our inner world's chaotic, if we feel like beat up on the inside, we're going to get beat up on the outside. The ego is constantly searching and seeking ways to feel better about itself, to avoid pain, or to numb suffering by lashing out at others or blaming others for their pain. But I'm here to tell you that all the pain is from within. All the pain comes from within. So our egoic mind tells us that people on the outside have to shift. People in the outer world have to change so we can feel better about ourselves on the inside. But the truth is, okay, that we have to change from the inside. Instead of pushing down the pain and pushing down the suffering or pointing the finger and blame, shadow work shows you ways of discovering the aspects of your personality that are missing and disconnected. I'm not saying it's easy, okay? Just saying it's good. All of us left behind these pieces of ourselves, bits and pieces of ourselves in the past when we were children, unwittingly. We were all born whole. We were born whole and complete. Yes, we might have come in with karma, whatever, but basically you were a whole human being. You were not fragmented. We were born enlightened masters, and we were born with healthy emotional systems. We love and we accepted ourselves as babies exactly the way we were, with no shame, no judgment about ourselves, good or bad. And as we grew up, we discovered that we separated ourselves from others. And we learned that in order to be loved and accepted by our parents, our grandparents, our siblings, our teachers, our friends, we quickly learned the qualities that were acceptable and the qualities that were unacceptable. And we hid from the qualities that were unacceptable. We disconnected. We disassociated from the qualities that were unacceptable. Slowly we learned to hide these parts of ourselves that were rejected by our parents, our teachers, our communities, our churches, our culture. So out of fear and shame, right, we repressed certain aspects of ourselves. We disengaged from our so-called shameful qualities so we could be good, so-called good. If we were shamed for being self-centered or narcissistic or selfish or cocky or, too big for our britches, right? We've got knocked down a peg, right? We were put in our place. So what went away when we got put in our place? Our self-confidence, our self-esteem, our assertiveness. We learn not to be assertive. We learn not to stand up for ourselves, right? So, we lost the ability to feel good about ourselves. And eventually we just settled into a safe place. A safe place was built for us to survive, where we only behaved in certain ways, in acceptable ways. We shut down certain aspects of our personality, which was brilliant of the ego to do that for us, to help us. And that's the purpose of the ego, to help the child survive, to assist the child to survive in the household that could have been dysfunctional. And it did help the child, and it did help the child get their needs met. But by doing so, we shut down half of ourselves. And we're only living half a life because we're only realizing half of our potential. So all the years growing up, every traumatic event that occurred, every humiliation in school, think about being shamed in school or feeling stupid or feeling guilty. We gave up another piece of ourselves. So these unclaimed parts are called the shadow. So I just want to give you a little example about I have an example here. Speaking of stupid, right? Who in their life did not think on some level, at some point in their life, that they were stupid? Who wasn't feeling stupid at some point in elementary school? So this is the birth of the shadow. So the shadow is birthed out of shame, right? Rejection via shame. We reject the aspect of ourself because of the shame we felt. So the wounding incident, right, would be maybe embarrassment in class for not knowing the answer. Maybe we had to stand up in front of the class and we didn't know the answer. So the unconscious decision, feeling hurt and ashamed, decided, I'm a stupid idiot. So we have the wounding incident, and then we have the unconscious decision of the child, feeling hurt and ashamed. And then the decision is, I'm stupid, I'm an idiot. And then the great cover-up, never wanting to feel that pain again for fear of not being approved of. We hide and suppress this part of ourselves. So maybe the child won't ever speak up in class again, because if I speak up in class, I fear being embarrassed or humiliated. And there's the birth of the false self, right? So the false self is the mask. So either, that false self can go either way. The false self can be, I lost my voice. I'm not going to speak up in class. I'm not going to raise my hand. I'm never sharing. Or it could have went the other way. The mask of the know-it-all, right? Well, some of us act like know-it-alls, and they're like, well, I'm going to never have that pain of being stupid. I'm going to know everything. And that will hide the pain, and no one will ever know how stupid I am because I'm a know-it-all. I know everything. So what's the gift of the know-it-all? Well, maybe you really tried hard in school. That's a gift. Maybe you didn't only, finish college. Maybe you went to graduate school, or maybe you got your PhD. And you know what? That's a gift. So we have to look at the gifts too, okay? So then the re-wounding, okay? So the confrontation with the shadow, despite our best efforts to hold it down, it will eventually pop back up when we least expect it, right? That feeling, that pain that the ego tries to keep the child from feeling the pain of feeling stupid. So, but we can hide it, and we can try to hide it, but eventually it's just that hidden aspect pops back up inappropriately when our inhibitions are down and lowered and our defenses are down, and we feel that same exact shame all over again. So the wounding incident, the unconscious decision we make about ourselves, I'm stupid, the great cover-up, we create the false self, the birth of the false self. See, that ego took care of us as children. Then what do we do? Because then we have the re-wounding, and now we're in Shameville. It comes out inappropriately. And Debbie Ford wrote a whole book on that, Why Good People Do Bad Things, that describes, like, all of the people that claim to be one thing and then publicly were humiliated when the truth came out. That's the re-wounding. So the projection is the unconscious transference, where we can only see the denied aspect within us in the outer world, in other people. So we might be calling everybody else stupid. Look how stupid he is. Oh my God, he's an idiot. And we can't really say that we're an idiot too, because we're everything. So the reclaiming, we wake up from denial, realizing that what we hate in others actually exists in us. That's the reclaiming. That's the integration process. And we own, I'm human and imperfect. You know, I'm stupid and I'm smart. I'm both. You know, for every shadow quality, there is the polar opposite. So for everybody who feels stupid about themselves, guess what? You're also a genius. You're also brilliant. You know, I'm stupid at a lot of things because I don't care about them. Okay. So I'm stupid, but I'm brilliant in other areas. So we have both qualities. This is the key to shadow work. Okay. You have to know you have the polar opposite of every single quality. So we're smart and we're stupid. You know, we're good and we're also bad, right? We're not always going to be good. Okay, so the re-owning, I'm human, I'm imperfect, finding forgiveness. We forgive ourselves, and I'll send this to you guys. We forgive ourselves for not knowing the answer, appearing stupid, and humiliating ourselves. You know, we have compassion for that part of ourselves, for that inner child energy that, you know, stood up in front of the class and was not prepared or just didn't know the answer. We have compassion for that, and we love that part of ourselves. We love our little stupid self. Um, Finding the gifts. Every quality is worthy, including stupid. What gift did stupid bring? Look at all the ways your stupid self served you. Did it make you a better student? Did you want to try harder, to learn more, to grow, to expand your knowledge? So find the gift. And creating a conscious vision. So how can you use the gifts of the shadow in supporting yourself in doing, having, and being everything you've always desired? So that's the scenario, to give you guys just an idea of how it works, because I don't want to go on and on about it and then I didn't give you an example. But I have a couple more examples that I want to give you. I just want to check in to see if there's any questions. Nope, everybody's good. Heidi, you found the email. Yay. Okay, so no questions, guys? Everybody's good? Okay, so uncovering the dark side. So shadow is called the dark side, but it's not really dark. It's just hidden, right? So we all have positive and negative qualities, okay? By claiming these aspects of ourself, we release the restriction that keep us from expressing ourselves freely. So that's what you have to realize. We're not expressing ourselves freely if we are if we are in what's the word? What is the word at the top of my head? I can't think of the word, but all right. So I'm sure it'll come to me. We have to release the restrictions. Resistance. There it is. I knew the word would come to me. We have to release resistance that keeps us from expressing ourselves freely. So we have to acknowledge when we're not. Okay? If we don't acknowledge when we're not, there's no way that we can do anything about it. So we have to acknowledge, where are we hiding? Where are we limiting ourselves? Where are we resisting? Okay? So integrating all of these aspects of ourselves, the good and the bad, because there's also a light shadow. Now you have to realize there's a light shadow because, so let's say, for example, you want to do what I'm doing. You want to be a spiritual teacher. You want to do energy work, and you want to coach people in shadow work, or you want to coach people in inner child work. So but you don't think you could do it. So you look up to the people that are doing it, and you're saying, but I could never do that. Well, that's your light shadow, because as I said, for everything you don't think you can do, you have the polar opposite ability to do it. If you admire someone, you have that quality. It's just the way it goes. If there's anyone you admire in the outer world that is doing something that you think you can't do, but you look up to that in reverence, then you know you have that quality too. You can do it too, and probably are supposed to be doing it. So many of you guys will be doing service work for other people, hopefully someday. Hopefully you will take this knowledge and bring it forward to other people. Don't keep it to yourself. You want to bring it forward. You want to share it. You want to help other people. So being of service is a great way for us to come out of our shells and stop our limiting beliefs about ourselves. So reclaiming the parts of ourselves that we thought were bad and integrating them back into our personality so we can be whole again. If we're selling ourselves short by not claiming all of who we are, is what I'm trying to get you guys to understand. It's extremely freeing to know that it's okay. It's okay not to be perfect. It's okay to be selfish or greedy or angry or a liar at times. It's beneficial to lie to people sometimes. We have to realize that. When you cut yourself off from the ability to do certain things because you think it's bad, you're limiting yourself. So we have to reclaim these aspects of ourselves. And this isn't easy. And it's truly an act of love for yourself to do this. So I want to give you an example here, because, most of us are all light workers, and all of us are seekers on this path. So you wouldn't be here if you weren't a seeker on this path. And we seekers tend to be rescuers, right? We want to help people. We are the type of people that enjoy giving, right? We give so much of ourselves. And there's times when we feel like that we give so much that there's nothing left, right? So many times we feel depleted, and we must embrace the characteristic of selfish at times. We have to be selfish. We have to retreat at times. So was it last week or the week before I didn't do the in-person class? I just physically couldn't do it. It was physically impossible for me to do it. So that was honoring me. Sure, I hated to disappoint people, but I honored myself. I have to come first, because if I become depleted, I can't give back. I can't continue to do this work. So I have to embrace selfish. I have to embrace selfish, because physically I can't do everything. So I have to nurture myself. And sometimes that could be considered selfish by other people, right? Like our family members that aren't used to us not giving. They could think we're selfish, but it's okay. They can think whatever they want. Let them have a ball thinking whatever they want. We have to preserve ourselves. We have to be selfish. We have to retreat at times. The us type of people, us empathic people, we need to go inside and give back to ourselves, even if it's Friday night reading a book in bed. That's nurturing. That's selfish. This is an act of self-love. That's a gift. So we could reclaim selfish as a good thing. And, I always use the example too of selfish. People who don't save enough money for themselves, for their own retirement, for their own needs, and they're giving their money away because they don't want to appear selfish. That's selfish to themselves, right? So we have to reframe selfish as self-love or setting boundaries. So true freedom, true wholeness comes when we acknowledge and claim and embrace our repressed qualities. we truly can't be generous until we embrace selfishness. We can't know love until we acknowledge the hateful qualities about ourselves. We can't truly be courageous and empowered until we acknowledge our weaknesses, our fears. When we're suppressing our weaknesses and our fears, it's just an act. It's a false self. We're not really empowered. We're not really courageous. The false self is just taken over, pretending, hiding. And that's what we have to clear all that up and just be authentic, be selfish and be generous, acknowledge our hateful side so we can truly love and be unconditionally loving to people. So let's say you're a little boy, right? And your dad is a prideful man, okay? He refuses to have his son look like a wimp. And it's usually because that makes the dad uncomfortable. So says to the boy, you change so I don't have to feel uncomfortable. Maybe the child is sensitive. Maybe he's just a sensitive little boy. But that makes the father very, very uncomfortable because it reminds the father of his own sensitivity that he's covered up a long time ago, right? So he reprimands the child and berates the child, and you stop crying. You have nothing to cry about. You didn't get hurt. There's nothing wrong with you. Not acknowledging the child's emotions, right? He doesn't want his child to turn into a wimp. So he's trying to toughen the kid up. He thinks he's doing a good job with his child. But every time, the child cries or shows an emotion, they're humiliated for being weak. And, the father punishes them or calls them weak or calls them a wimp. And the child makes the decision at some point, right? The example I gave you, the great cover up, right? There's a decision. I'm covering up these aspects of myself. I'm ashamed of these aspects of myself. I'm judging myself. I never want to feel this way again, the way I felt when my dad told me I was a wimp. I don't want to be humiliated or shamed again. So that pain, the ego never wants the child to feel that pain again. So this is the cover up. The pain of being shamed for an emotion requires the child to hide his weaknesses from his father. And he spends his whole life proving to his dad. It's not only about hiding the weaknesses. Now you have to prove that you're something else. So the ego has to come up with a false self, a false persona, a mask to hide the weaknesses from his father. So he spends his whole life proving to his dad that he's not a wimp. He becomes the captain of the football team, and he lifts weights, and he's does all these sports, and he acts like a macho man, and he hides his weaknesses even from himself. Okay, he won't even acknowledge his own emotions. So he forgets that he made a vow to never show weakness, and weakness becomes a disowned quality at that point. Completely disowned quality. So then he takes it a step further. He shows hatred against all men who display acts of sensitivity. Okay? Any man who is sensitive is weak and a wimp. And he has that disdain, that hatred towards these type of men that are sensitive. Every time he sees a weak man, he gets disgusted and feels that hatred towards that person. And he rejects that individual exactly the way he was rejected by his dad and exactly the way he rejected that aspect of himself. And the irony of the shadow is that in order for him to truly claim the quality of strength and courage, he must embrace that weak wimp inside of him. He has to come to terms with the fact that there is an aspect of him that's sensitive and emotional. And if he doesn't, it will create an illness in his body. Because if we don't listen to our emotions, they manifest physically. in order to talk louder, to speak louder to us. So by not claiming weakness and wimpiness within will bring on a sabotaging aspect of his life. Maybe he'll get sick. Maybe weak will show up in a different way in his life when he doesn't want to appear like sensitive, and it will have a sabotaging effect on his life. Or even maybe he's so hard on himself, maybe so hard on his family, maybe he'll lose his family. Maybe his wife will divorce him because she can't take it anymore. So, you know, this is how this happens to people. So this part of him could humiliate him. This part of him could embarrass him later in life, and then he'll hate it even more. So the key is to recognize the problem, recognize that we're unbalanced when we're in this position, right? And then try to find the gift. What is the gift in being sensitive? What is the gift in being empathic, right? A lot of men are very empathic, and they're not allowed to claim that quality. So the gift of embracing weakness, the gift of embracing wimp would be embracing vulnerability. You get to be vulnerable sometimes. You get to show that part of you. You know, you get to be kind and loving and sensitive and emotional, and you get to let others help you. You don't always have to be the strong one, right? So those are beautiful gifts, to give yourself the permission to be weak and vulnerable and ask for help, right? It frees you up to have a more enriching, full life with people that you love, that can nurture you and love you. You don't have to be the tough one all the time. So when I was teaching Reiki 1, I realized that, you know, one of the 5 principles of Reiki is, just for today, I will not be angry. And I never liked that principle, and I never really agreed with it, so I wouldn't teach it. It was hard for me to teach something I can't agree with, because the feelings of anger and rage in and of themselves are not a bad thing. It's not bad to be angry. Anger is good if you're not, if it's healthy anger and you're not reacting and taking and attacking people. But to say, just for today, I will not be angry, denies an aspect of yourself. It puts you in a position where you will suppress anger. So I couldn't agree with that. I think that just for today, we can heal our anger. We can acknowledge our anger. We can embrace our anger, and we could transform our anger and transmute our anger, but not be it. Anytime you're saying not to be something, you're not whole anymore. So I had to teach a different message. So by embracing anger, we can learn how not to react or how not to overreact. You know, many of us were suppressed our anger as children, and now we have to learn how to respond to anger and not react to it. So by embracing anger, we look at the anger, we feel the anger, we express the anger to ourselves and maybe to someone who will listen, a sympathetic ear, and we work through it, we talk through it, and we find the gift underneath it. Always underneath anger is sadness, usually, or hurt. So when I started to do shadow work, my intention was to, you know, be a better person, a better wife, a better mother, a better daughter, a better sister, a better friend. You know, to stop being so irritable, to stop being so judgmental, but I had it all wrong, okay? Shadow exploration is not about improving, repairing, or fixing. And it's not even about being a good person or a better person or doing the right thing. It's about realizing that there was never anything wrong to begin with, okay? That shadow exploration is getting back in touch with yourself, with your true self, with your compassionate self, with your loving self, being compassionate enough to love yourself and love all the qualities that you were born with, right? So we must realize that we have to accept, acknowledge, honor, and embrace. Accept, acknowledge, honor, and embrace all of our qualities, all of the qualities we were born with, all the qualities that nobody accepted in us, okay? So think of integration transcends separation. Integration transcends separation. So what's the problem on the planet? Separation, right? So we start inside ourselves, and then our outer world reflects our inner world. This is how it works. Integrating every aspect of ourself will help us get closer to our soul. And the separation on the planet, the separation among human beings, mirrors to us the separation within us, okay? The only way to create unity consciousness on this planet is to repair the separation within us, okay? Integration transcends separation. So integration is the first step to unity, the unity within us. Only then can there be unity consciousness in the world. So unity starts with us, okay? So it's getting late, and I want to share a few more things with you. Any questions? Can you text me if you have any questions? So let me see here what I want to talk about something important with you guys. Let me just find my notes. Okay, so okay, I heard last week I mentioned Gabor Mate, right? And I showed you his book, which I don't have here anymore because my son stole it, because it actually was his book. Gabor Mate also wrote another book called When the Body Says No, okay? And the reason I'm telling you this, when the body says no, because we don't listen to our body, okay? And I want to tell you a story about Hillary Clinton. And Gabor Mate talked about this, and I thought it was very interesting. So I jotted down some notes. So everybody knows, remember when she passed out, she collapsed by a van one day. She had pneumonia or something. I don't pay attention to politics, so I heard things. I never saw it on the news. I just heard whispers about it. She had pneumonia. Well, actually, no one knew what was wrong with her. And her Secret Service had to abruptly pick up her lifeless body and to throw it in a van to get it out of the way of spectators. But somehow, you know, we found out about it. Well, keep that in mind. Keep that in the back of your head. And then remember, and I didn't watch this either, but during the Democratic convention, see, I'm very stupid about politics. So remember during the Democratic convention when she was nominated, for those of you who watched it, there was a video, okay? I don't know about this, but supposedly there was a video, and Morgan Freeman was speaking and talked about her childhood. And there was a defining moment. They were exemplifying, a defining moment for her in character building, when they told a story of her life when she was 4 years old, and she, you know, ran into the house and she was scared, and she ran to her mother, and she was telling her mother about the kids outside were bullying her and making fun of her and threatening her. And her mother said, and this was used as an example of great parenting, okay? The mother said to her, "There's no room in this house for cowards. Now go out there and figure out what to do about those kids." So Gabor Mate, who talks a lot about conscious parenting, says, What did her mother really say to her? What was the message that that mother brought forth to her child, to her daughter? There's no room in this house for vulnerability. There's no room for your emotions in this house. So don't come here looking for support. You're on your own. Suck it up. Okay, what happens when she's 68 years old? She was sick. She had pneumonia. She didn't tell anyone. She didn't honor herself. Supposedly, she thought she had to suck it up, right? She wouldn't even acknowledge her own need for care, right? So it's sad. This is sad. Would not acknowledge her own limitations, would not acknowledge her humanness. And it is, many say that they've experienced her as being very cold, a cold, inhuman person. I wonder why, right? The suppressing the needs of a human being. These patterns go way, way back, and they have consequences. And that's why I'm telling you this story, because not having our emotions seen, not having our emotions heard, not having them valued as important prevented us from having regard for our own feelings, okay? So we tend to block our feelings, not hearing our own feelings, not listening to our bodies, not seeing our own, emotions come up, not making ourselves important, not valuing our needs. So if our needs weren't valued, if our needs weren't honored and seen and heard, chances are the same thing, we're going to do the same thing to ourselves and to others. Another example from Gabor Mate was that he read in a newspaper about a 71-year-old physician who passed away from cancer. And it said, such a good man, such a good man. I want you to hear this. So loyal to his mother, right? They had such a special relationship, a bond that was apparent in all aspects of their life. This is the obituary. As a married man with young children, he had dinner with his parents every night. So loyal, so good. When he would arrive home where his children and his wife would be waiting for him, he would have another dinner with them. So good, so loyal. 2 dinners a day for years started to cause weight gain and suspicions. Gabor Mate's analysis of this was, this man believed, decided, first of all, that he was responsible for what everybody felt, everybody's happiness. He didn't say to his mother, he couldn't say to his mother. It wasn't safe for him to say to his mother, I hate to disappoint you, but I'm going to have dinner with my family most of the time. And he couldn't say, he felt he couldn't say to his wife, I'm so sorry to disappoint you, but once or twice a week, I'm going to have dinner with my parents because they're old and they need me. He tried to please everyone, right? He felt responsible for how everybody else felt. This is a shadow. And the second shadow belief is, I must never disappoint anyone. I must never disappoint anyone. These beliefs are very common for many of us, but he died very young, right? Because he betrayed himself. He betrayed his body. Our coping mechanisms as adults are derived from our ideas about ourselves as children, okay? Very, very important for you guys to realize. Our coping mechanisms as adults are derived from our ideas about ourselves as children. So I hope this demonstrates to you guys the power of embracing the good and bad within ourselves, the so-called good and bad, because there is no good and bad. There is no good and bad, okay? Everything is purposeful. Everything is needed. everything is honored. The power of embracing all of the aspects of ourself and not trying to deny any aspect of ourself is so important to our emotional wellness and our physical wellness, okay? Trying to be good is not emotionally healthy, okay? It doesn't make you a bad person, but the act of, the idea of good is not necessary. It's not necessary. My computer is making a weird noise. Everything we judge in another, we are judging in ourselves. There is nothing we cannot see or perceive that we are not. If we did not possess a certain quality, we could not recognize it in another. Wouldn't it be freeing to know that we are everything? And by embracing the fact that we contain every single aspect of humanity, each of us being the microcosm that reflects and contains the macrocosm, we hold the potential to access every aspect of ourself, every aspect of the universe. We contain the imprint, the entire universe within our DNA. There's nothing we can see or conceive of that we are not. And the purpose, the only purpose of our journey here is to restore ourselves to wholeness by raising our consciousness. We immediately raise the consciousness of the planet and the vibration of the planet. This is why we're here. So I want to read you a little quote that I saw today that Missy brought to my attention. Standing up for yourself doesn't make you argumentative. Sharing your feelings doesn't make you overly sensitive. And saying no doesn't make you uncaring or selfish. If someone won't respect you or respect your feelings, your needs, and your boundaries, the problem isn't you, the problem is them. And the author of that quote is Lori DeShaney. So we will continue this conversation next week. I think someone's trying to talk to me. Let me see. Okay. I don't think there's any questions. Any questions, guys? No? Okay. So I'm wishing you all a great night and a great rest of the week, and I will see you next week. Namaste.